I think the future of trading is basically technology driven. But I think that we are still in need of human intervention, because we do need that quality control, we do need that human touch. And I'm part of the fraternity of people that still think that, machines aren't going to take over the world. I think the machines are there to make our world easier and more comfortable, but they ultimately have to be driven by someone. And I believe that the people who build them should also be driving them. An example of when Fintech goes wrong is probably the most memorable event would be back in 2014, if I remember correctly, when one of the AP Twitter accounts were hacked. And somewhere in the afternoon, there was a tweet that went out that said that the White House had been hit with a bomb, and an explosion had injured the president. And immediately, things were set loose. And obviously, some 3 or 5 minutes later, the press secretary, the then press secretary, came out and obviously informed the media that there had been no bomb in the White House and the president was unharmed. The perpetrators of this attack were not going after the White House or indeed the president. They were going after Wall Street. And they were later identified as the Syrian Electronic Army. And the damage they did during those 5 minutes was allegedly over $130 billion of market loss, because there was no back check. There was no human fact check. These were quant platforms triggering massive events and obviously subsequent actions based on that particular information. Now, had that been a human-driven process, someone would have picked up the phone, called AP, and asked, is this true? And they would have immediately got, of course, a reply that it wasn't. However, having said that, we can look at this now, this is a few years back, and argue specifically with one of the technology platforms that we're building now. And we talk about extreme learning machines as a protocol. These aren't just buzzwords. These represent new ways of ingesting large amount of data, real big data, where you would have so much data gathered that you were able to cross-check within false or fake news if it was real or if it wasn't. Because we have to remember that unlike a situation like this, where a news site is being hacked, fake news can still drive markets. So it's the ability to analyze what the market's going to do, but when it's going to recover. And this has to do with the amount of information that you can process and the sophistication level of your machine learning, how much they can pick up and how much they can learn. An example of this ordeal that I just described would have been if you had, theoretically, ELM running at the same time with the processing power that you have today. You could have cross-correlated, arguably, other Twitter accounts or other staff member accounts of the White House to understand that there were no other signs of a hit or an attack being underway apart from this Twitter source. So these are areas where I think technology as a whole is getting better. The quality of prediction is getting better, not worse. The question is, where is the delta of profitability going? When you get higher predictions, you get higher quality, the margins, of course, are shrinking as well. I'm not the person to speak to that, but I think that the minimizing risk effect will definitely be an important one. And I think that will help us stem and perhaps systemically prevent bubbles, because we are going to be taking into consideration fundamentals alongside people's sentiment. And if you always have fundamentals in the background, I always believe that's your anchor of reality.